Hi, welcome to the Science of Sales and Marketing. I'm Letitia Rodley. I'm a partner with Sirona Marketing. And today I'm joined by Caitlin Honta, who's co-founder of Sirona Marketing, and Roger Pellegrini, who's head of marketing with Albert Invent. So thank you for joining us today, Roger. Thank you, Caitlin. I'm going to take a minute to give Roger and Caitlin an opportunity to just introduce themselves really quickly, and then we'll jump into the meat of this conversation. So I'm going to start with Caitlin. Caitlin, you want to take a minute to introduce Sirona and yourself?
Yeah, so thanks, Letitia. I'm Caitlin Honta, co-founder of Sirona Marketing, along with Abdul Rastegar, who sometimes makes an appearance on these podcasts. And we help life sciences, technology, and health tech companies with their go-to-market strategy and marketing. I've been at it for about 2 years, but I've spent my career in life sciences technology marketing. So great to be on this session today with you, Letitia.
And Roger.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So over at Albert Invent, we bring digital transformation to companies in the chemistry and materials science industries. So we offer a unified data platform to chemists making things like new glues, new paints, new glass, any new material. They can use our software. So like Caitlin, I have a background in life sciences marketing as well. We work together at a company called Benchling. And yeah, looking forward to discussing that.
Cool. Thanks. So we all had kind of the meeting before the meeting. We were thinking, like, what are the topics that we think could be of the most value and the most interest to our audience? And we kind of landed on 3 areas. And the first one I want to talk about, Roger, was you had talked about going in as a new marketing leader to an organization that is highly steeped in science and kind of what it meant to be the lone marketer, establishing that discipline and kind of proving out value and performance very quickly. So I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about what your kind of MO was when you walked into the organization, and then a little further to that, like how do you kind of work to translate the art of marketing, if you will, to a group of scientists?
Yeah, absolutely. Those were a lot of big questions in there,
Yeah.
so we'll tackle them a couple at a time.
We'll figure our way through it. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to remind me of a few. Coming into Albert Invent, I joined the company just about a little more than a year ago in June of 2024. Time has really flown by. It feels like, more time has gone by than that because we've done so much, but it also feels like less time has gone by than that because it has really flown. So my first MO going into the company was to figure out what's most important to the company, right? So who are we selling to? What types of opportunities are we looking to get? What's our average deal cycle time? The usual metrics like deal cycle time, deal size, win rate, that sort of stuff. And really the way that I looked at those metrics was from the ground up, from the bottom of the funnel up. My philosophy is always that you need to understand the bottom of the funnel before you build your top of the funnel. Because there's no point building a top of the funnel if you have a huge funnel at the bottom and it's just all leaking out. You can generate as many leads as you want, get them as qualified as you want, but if you don't know how to bring them from hand raise to deal close, that's all for naught, right? And if you don't know how to make them successful after the fact, then what's the point in the first place? So. Right. Starts by looking at the customers and the customer success process and then the deal closure process and then going up the funnel from there and assessing gradually where does marketing sink its roots down into all of that.
Right. So given your background, did you discover or run into any areas where it was kind of nuanced working with scientists in regards to their understanding of marketing? And so when you walk in and you say, hey, let's look at your funnel, let's look at your ICP, let's look at what's your average deal size, were you getting big question marks over their head, or do you feel like was a methodology or a series of questions that resonated with them?
It's really fun working with scientists and sort of working with leaders who don't have as much exposure to marketing, because at least the ones that I've had the luck of working with have been really open-minded. They haven't been the type to pretend to understand my expertise any more than I understand theirs, right? So it's been mutual trust from the start, which, I think is foundational to anything before we even get into any of the nuances with scientists.
Yeah.
But beyond that, getting into some of the more quantitative aspects of marketing, I think it resonates very clearly with them, actually, and possibly too much, if you ask me. I think it's really easy, actually, for these technical leaders to over-index on only the quantitative aspects and only the numbers while missing some, maybe more of the qualitative nuance and some of the inevitable unmeasurables, which I
Right.
think are just kind of always in the room with us
Right.
as marketers.
Right.
So it's fun to work with them, and they make me sharper in terms of the quantitative side of things. And I
Right.
like to think that I can, show them a bit more of what marketing can bring to the table that they might not expect, and ways that we can have fun. Because the worst is when you get a technical you think that you need to be overly technical in order to market to a technical audience. But scientists are people too, of course.
Right, right. I think that's really interesting. Caitlin, I'm wondering if that resonates with you as well. Your experience is almost exclusively in life sciences, and so you're bringing that art of product marketing, messaging, identification, etc. I'm curious if you kind of ran into that, kind of the challenge in trying to articulate the value of what marketing is bringing to the table in working with a group of people who are heavily steeped in science and kind of data and just because sometimes what we do, it's that, which is why we as marketers probably love it, is that it truly is the coming together of quantifiable and qualifiable. And sometimes articulating that to people who live in the quantifiable world or the science world is a little challenging.
Yeah, I mean, we see this with a lot of our clients who they're struggling to figure out, how do I convince my leadership team or my board to invest in things like brand or those longer term plays that aren't just necessarily going to be, here's a number of leads we're generating, beautiful, easy metric. I think within that, it's finding what you can measure within that, but also building that trust over time by having some quick wins. So yes, doing some things where you can build that feedback.
The quick wins are very important.
We're seeing growth in these areas that we can measure, but trust me on these areas we can't measure, like maybe something like a brand investment, that will pay off over time, and being able to balance your time. You hear like 80-20 or 60-40, and I think it depends on the company size, but I think it's not just over indexing on, hey, we can't measure anything, so sorry, we're out of luck, but also, continually building that case for there's some things we can't measure, but these are important, and using, indicators as much as you can to show the power of that. So if it's something like brand, using anecdotes for, hey, we can't measure this, but back channel references are happening. Our customers are recommending us because we've built such a good brand. Or here's what a customer said about us. Here's a customer quote. Those sorts of like use cases and examples, they're not data, but they're still, qualitative measures.
Right.
And I would also say as well, just on the point of, translating information to scientists, I love what you said, Roger, about like having a little bit of fun. I agree. I mean, I feel like I've only ever had the experience where one audience within the larger pharma business has ever been more of the like, just give me the straight up facts and I need 50 pages of it. And that's in the quality management space.
Yeah.
And I mean, quality management folks, like, they do an amazing job, and they also are sticking true to their personalities, which is like, give me all the data in a 50-page paper. I don't want any of the like fun language. And, we love them for that. But I think that, there is more fun that we can bring into it. I also have heard, folks say before, hey, we're marketing to scientists. We don't want to, dumb it down or oversimplify it or, maybe this is going to insult them. But I always remember that we're actually translating something really complex to a person who's also steeped in their domain. So even though they're very smart, intelligent people, they're not necessarily coming from the technology world. And so it's actually even more important to communicate simply and clearly and be really, really focused on those outcomes, maybe in a little bit of a fun way, than to try to worry about being overly academic in the language.
Right. Interesting. So I appreciate you taking the time to kind of walk us through that, Roger. The other thing that we talked about, which was of particular interest to me, not that it's not all interesting to me, but I got really interested in this particular topic, was you talking about, you have a very kind of succinct TAM. ABM is a strong approach for you. So I'm wondering if you can spend just a minute or two kind of, one, defining what ABM is to you in your environment, because ABM is a super ambiguous term that gets thrown around a lot. And sometimes it literally just means we've got a targeted account list we're going after.
Sure.
And sometimes it means a truly bespoke campaign motion that's targeted at specific accounts. So I'd love to hear kind of how you guys define it and, what's worked and what's not worked for you in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have personally a long history with ABM, account-based marketing. Before my time with Albert, I spent a year as the head of account-based marketing at another startup called Truveta, also in the healthcare sector. And then, of course, at Benchling, it was a major focus of mine. I got to build the first program there, and it was a lot of fun kind of figuring it out because those were like sort of the early days of what I think very quickly turned into a buzzword. ABM, right? Account-based marketing. Even from the start, it's not only marketing. The cornerstone of the ABM, quote-unquote, programs that I've run in my career have been regular meetings between a marketer, an SDR, and an account executive. And basically, they form a pod. And every week or every other week, they meet and they say, okay, folks, we in this pod, we've been going after these 3 or 5 or, usually very few, really big accounts. These are accounts with more than 100,000 employees that would eventually turn into 7 or 8 annual recurring revenue deals, right? So they're big, complicated behemoths. They're all white whales. And each week, this pod strategizes, right? They have an account plan for each of these accounts, of course, and they talk about what have we done in the last week? What meetings did we have? What did we learn? Who did we speak with? Who did they suggest that we reach out to instead? Or, this week we were at this event and we met this person from that account. Or we've been seeing these intent signals online. Well, that account is searching for that search term, which we provide, or that competitor that we compete with. What do we do? So it's all about, in my mind, enabling that connection between marketing and sales and the SDR, which so often forms that bridge, in order to enable hyper-personalized, I almost said hyper-personalized marketing, but of course it's not hyper-personalized marketing. It's more of a unified go-to-market strategy, again, bespoke for each account.
Yeah, it's hyper-personalized engagement almost, right?
Hyper-personalized engagement.
Roger, where within that, where would you say, because in some contexts, folks might describe that as, just having strategic accounts, who this person is like a global account manager, they own the big name pharma company here and all of the activities around that. Where does marketing bring a specific value to the context of this like hyper-personalized engagement with those groups?
Sure, absolutely. So, marketing brings a lot of things to the table that I think wouldn't be there otherwise if this were just, say, a purely sales-led motion. Just think of all of the way I think about it is marketing has a skill set, right? And this is our opportunity to bring it to bear directly on a one-to-one basis with the accounts that matter the most to our business. So we can take any of the things that we do at larger scales and scale it down and focus that impact on a single account, right? So that could mean individual digital ad campaigns. So we actually use a tool to run personalized ads that target individuals, and we monitor the numbers on that at that contact level. So that's sort of the hyper-targeted version of, say, your typical broad-based digital ad campaign. A similar thing can be done with, say, the website, where instead of having a web page that's meant for broad public consumption, we make a personalized landing page that really speaks to our known needs of that buyer. The way that I like to think of those landing pages, honestly, is if I could just put a piece of paper in front of my ICP, what do I want it to have on it, right? What do I want? What's the ideal thing that I could say to them, or we as a company could present right there if we had that opportunity? Because guess what? We do have that opportunity, right? With digital ads, I can bring anybody to any web page. It then becomes a question of messaging, and that becomes a very rich partnership between marketing and the sales, where both parties are doing research and providing even their personal anecdotes from sales, right, from their meetings and their conversations that they have with this account to inform our content capabilities on the marketing side, right? So that's another meeting of the teams there that wouldn't be possible if we weren't bringing both to the table. I could go on and on because this we can go through each channel here and how it can be brought to bear. But that's how I think about it. And as you can tell, I love kind of getting creative on this front and just, yes, taking examples from what's been done already. Like, I'm not the only person to run an ad campaign and a personalized landing page, of course. But I like to think about it as from that first principles approach of, I need to get this message in front of this person. What do I want it to say? What's the best way to do that?
I'm going to ask you an impromptu question. We didn't talk about it ahead of time, but I'm curious, as marketing professionals, in those that listen to this podcast, as well as the three of us, we work very closely with this early stage startup community, and we have lots of different challenges in working. Sometimes it's limited budget, sometimes it's limited resource, sometimes it's limited time. So lots of different things that come across us. I'm curious if you, as a leader, a marketing leader in an early stage startup, as one of the first marketing leaders to go in, kind of a lean team, what are like the 3 max 4 critical tools to launch an ABM campaign that you need?
Outlook is enough to get started. Outlook and maybe a FedEx account,
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you can really get
Life
very
Sciences
creative.
loves Outlook.
Yeah, I mean, sure. But you can get very creative with your messaging, and I really don't believe that email is dead. I don't. I don't think email is dead. I don't think direct mail is dead. I don't think any channel is dead, right? It just comes down to how you use it. And as I told my team recently, we were having a conversation about email marketing, especially. And I think one of them said, is it even worth investing in at all in this day and age? And I get that, right? We all get so much spam and so much of it is the same. Can't tell you how many times I've gotten one of those like breakup GIF emails from an SDR, like, oh, this penguin is crying because you won't reply to my email. My advice is to think about each email that you send as a gift. So a gift that you're giving to the recipient. And you want it to be exciting. You want them to have this sense of glee when they receive an email from your company, right? You want them to start associating your subject lines with something different. I don't want to over-index on the usual subject line heuristics of, oh, it should be like shorter than these many words, and it should have like a call to action, et cetera. Like, the usual rules aren't really that helpful in email marketing because everybody's following them and everything is sounding the same. So in these free channels, especially these low cost, high volume channels that I think, startups with limited resources should lean into, such as email, such as social media, such as direct mail, if you do it right. I think it's really all about the message and making that as perfect and as eye-catching and as true to your brand, honestly, and the value that you offer as you possibly can.
So I'm going to compliment and then I'm going to double click on the question. So the compliment is, I completely agree with you. I always think of, I've been doing this for a minute now, and email is one tool in our quiver, and you should not only, it's omnichannel, truly, right? You got to be everywhere that they are when they're there, and you don't know where that's going to be. So be everywhere, have a complimentary message, a complimentary value proposition, and it will resonate, and that contributes to your brand as well. So totally in alignment with you there. Double clicking. So if you had 3 tools, you go into a new company or getting started, those 3 tools are Outlook.
Well, okay.
Like what would those?
Do I assume that there's salt in the cupboard here?
Yeah.
Look in the cupboard, right?
Maybe not. I mean, would you say like I gotta have an email platform? I gotta have a
Well, we don't use at Albert today. We don't even use an email prospecting tool or sender tool like Sales.
An automation platform.
Outbound. We have HubSpot.
Okay.
So we use that. Okay. And I've never personally worked at a startup that doesn't have either a HubSpot or a Salesforce. We use HubSpot for both. So I would say some sort of lightweight CRM platform is pretty much a necessity. You can probably get away with Excel, right, until a certain point, like Excel and Outlook and basic LinkedIn, and be super, super, super scrappy for a few months. But once you have a little bit of scale that you need to hit, and hopefully a little bit of dollars to spend, you're probably going to need to invest in some lightweight CRM plus marketing automation like platform together.
And then from an ABM perspective, what would those tools be that you think are like really critical to help you execute on that?
You mean like a name brand tool?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to name a name brand, just like, do
like
you think in
a
order to execute
CRM.
ABM, you need an ABM tool?
Oh, you mean like a 6sense or a command base? No,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. So
I don't think we did a lot of ABM at Benchling for years without anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
I tend to be in agreement with you, but I'm curious, especially since you have such expertise in ABM, if you had become like, a passionate,
No, actually,
of like,
quite the opposite.
I love that.
I think it's a nice to have, and I've been on I think a few sides of the coin here, the multi-sided coin, because I've been in a position where we really didn't have much at all, any sort of specialized ABM tooling beyond the typical marketing tech stack that you might see at any startup, like, a HubSpot plus LinkedIn Campaign Manager.
Right.
Maybe some Zoom info credits if you're lucky, That's nice.
Yeah. No, I'm in complete agreement with you. I've been in a couple roles where we get very excited and we're going to execute ABM, and then one of the someone gets the idea that we've got to have this big, heavy ABM tool. And I don't want to discount the value of those. I do think it's a crawl, walk, run approach, but I think, as a purist, you can get away with a very solid ABM strategy and not necessarily have to invest in. And I also,
they're very pricey as well.
Right. It's probably more enterprise.
Yeah.
We
only
I always wonder.
Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, I always wonder too, like within the context of healthcare, life sciences, and I mean, you all are not exclusively, but you're selling to these large, enterprise in sort of the chemical space. Like we could probably all do a AI or Google search and come up with that list of accounts ourselves with about 15 minutes of work. For these like horizontal companies that are selling into a bunch of industries, maybe a bigger, more robust tool is required earlier on. But I mean, it's interesting to see like in this space when companies are spending a lot of money on these big, meaty like ABM tools, how much they probably could do with scrapping together some, lists and some Google searching and doing a outbound email, FedExing some gifts to people. Like it's the creativity that's interesting.
Right.
So those tools probably serve
with $50,000 and
an
ABM campaign to run.
Right.
Well,
I think we're at the enterprise level where those tools add a lot of value is in the complexity of an organization, the multi-touch. Like let's say you're marketing to B of A, right? It's like there's hundreds of ICPs within that organization that are all interacting with your organization at different points within different channels, and the ability to track and manage all that. But at our earlier stage companies, we're talking to like, it's just a different model. So anyway, I appreciate, we could all just go on and kind of bore the audience as we go down into this. So love this. I appreciate, and I'm sitting here. I love doing these types of podcasts because you just learn so much from the participants as well. So I really appreciate, which is a great segue in kind of the last area that we wanted to touch on with you, which is kind of some lessons learned. So as we go into organizations and as marketing leaders, or even in fractional roles, consulting roles, we go in and we lay out a game plan, and marketing is all about testing, and it's about, let's try it, let's adjust it, let's repeat. And so I'm curious if you have one or two interesting stories about a lesson learned, and maybe more specifically at Albert, but a lesson learned, this is what we tried and it performed amazingly well and here's what we learned, or this one kind of took a left turn and this is what we learned and how we applied it.
Yeah, great questions. I won't say the first thing that comes to mind, which I hadn't necessarily been thinking about bringing up until just now, is the lesson learned of how much you can get done with a really scrappy, highly focused, small team. I had the really great chance to grow with Benchling from employee 25 to employee 800 something.
Wow.
Yeah, I really cut my teeth there, and love the folks over there. I think they're doing some great work, especially with their new AI tools. In any case, we went through a lot of different iterations of the organization. And when I left the team, Of course, we were at great size, a huge size, much larger than we were even just a year prior. And I've left that company and now I joined Albert, right? Where we're back to just 150 people total. And my marketing team is 5 people, including me. We actually, when I joined, it was 3 people, including myself, about a year ago, right? So I went from, I guess we were a team of probably 50 plus at Benchling down to a team of 3 at Albert. And of course, the needs were very similar, right? We still had to
Right.
do a lot of the same things, but just now with 3 people. Not quite at the same scale, of course, and we're going to need to cut some corners. We need to find a way to make it happen, right? And so a big question that I immediately started ruminating on as a leader brought into this organization was, well, where do we go from here? We're going to do our best right now, and we're each wearing a bunch of different hats, but how can we get all of this done? It turns out, actually, if you build a really great team with really clear ownership and really eager owners, you can get a lot done.
Right.
So the efficiency factor, I think, of a team of 5 highly capable, highly focused marketers, I'm seeing and I've learned that each of those people can get more done than individually, say, 50 marketers at a more distributed organization.
Right. Well, we've really enjoyed speaking with you, Roger. This has been great. I love this part of what we do in our jobs. I could sit and talk shop with marketers all day long. I love this. So thank you very much for taking the time.